I never imagined that my own daughter, the little girl I raised with so much love for 40 years, would look me in the eyes and shout, "You should be dead," in front of 50 guests at her own birthday party. Before we start, please subscribe, turn on the bell, because we share news stories every day. Drop a like and tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. My name is Edward Ed Miller. I'm 65, and this is the most painful and also the most freeing story of my life. For decades, I was a successful business owner in the textile industry in Charlotte, North Carolina. I built a nest egg of about $900,000 working 16 hours a day. My wife, Susan, passed away from cancer 5 years ago, and since then, my 2 children, Christina and Jason, became the most important part of my life. Christina was always my princess, a brilliant architect, 42, with a smile that could light up any room. For years we were inseparable. Every Sunday we had lunch together. She told me about her projects, her dreams, her worries. I gave her advice, helped her financially when she needed it, and she gave me that sense of purpose every widowed father longs for. Everything changed in October 2018 when she met Andrew Reeves, a 45-year-old attorney, well-dressed, smooth talker, the kind of man who knows how to manipulate. At first, I liked him. He was polite to me, and he seemed to truly love Christina. She glowed with happiness. They married in a small ceremony in May 2019, and I proudly walked her down the aisle. But something strange started happening after the wedding. Christina began to pull away. Sunday lunches stretched out, first every 2 weeks, then once a month. Her phone replies turned short, like talking to me was a chore. When I tried to visit, there were always excuses. Dad, we're busy. Another day is better. Andrew's working from home. My son, Jason, 36, a physician, noticed it too. "Dad, something's off with Christina," he told me in February 2023 during one of our monthly dinners. "Patricia and I were at their house last week. Andrew was cold and Christina seemed nervous, like there was tension in the air." The moment that changed everything came in September 2023. Christina would turn 43 on the 20th, and she invited me to her party in a way that felt odd. "Dad, I want you at my birthday. It'll be special," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I've invited a lot of important people. Andrew says it's important that you're there." That last line bothered me. Why would Andrew have a say in whether I attended my own daughter's birthday? The night of the party, I arrived at Christina's home in Ballantyne at 8 p.m., a beautiful house I had helped finance as a wedding gift. The backyard was decorated with warm string lights, with tables for about 50 people. I recognized some guests, architects Christina worked with, old classmates, neighbors from their upscale community. From the moment I walked in, something felt different. Christina greeted me with a cool kiss on the cheek, without her usual warm hug. "Hi, Dad, I'm glad you made it," she said with a mechanical smile. Andrew appeared at her side and shook my hand a little too firmly. "Ed, welcome. Christina was anxious for you to be here." The way he said it unsettled me. Not we, but Christina was anxious, as if he were standing outside her wishes, just narrating them. I tried to ignore it and move toward the guests. That's when I noticed the looks. Conversation stopped when I approached. Whispers faded as soon as I got close. A woman I didn't know, around 50, watched me with a mix of curiosity and pity that confused me. I went over to a table where Christina's old college friends were sitting. "Ed, it's been so long," said Martha James, an architect I'd known since their school days. But her enthusiasm faded quickly, replaced by visible discomfort. "How are you feeling?" Christina told us that, well, you've had some little health issues. My blood ran cold. Little health issues? I felt perfectly fine. Just a month earlier, I'd had a full checkup. Everything excellent. "I'm not sure what you mean, Martha," I said, steady. "I feel great." She looked confused. She exchanged a nervous glance with the others and quickly changed the subject. Ah, okay. Must be a misunderstanding. For the next hour, the same pattern repeated. People spoke to me in that condescending tone used with older adults who supposedly have cognitive problems. Simple questions asked slowly, as if I needed extra time to process, forced smiles, and badly hidden sympathy. The last straw came when I was heading to the bathroom and heard part of a conversation between two women I couldn't identify. Poor thing. Christina says he hasn't been the same since Susan died. Sometimes he can't even remember where he put his keys. How hard it must be for her to deal with that. I returned to the backyard feeling confused and increasingly angry. What were they talking about? What had Christina been telling people about me? I looked for my daughter and found her in the center of the patio, surrounded by friends, laughing. When our eyes met, her expression changed instantly. The joy vanished and was replaced by something I didn't recognize then. But now I know it was guilt mixed with resentment. Andrew appeared at my side again, setting his hand on my shoulder like he owned the moment. "Ed, come with me. There are some people I want you to meet." He led me to a group of older men standing near the pool. "Gentlemen, this is Christina's father, Ed Miller." One of them, bald and around my age, reached out his hand. "Nice to meet you, Ed. I'm Dr. Frank Rogers, a geriatric specialist. Andrew's told me a lot about you." The way he spoke, familiar yet professional, put me on alert. Our conversation left me deeply unsettled. For 20 minutes he peppered me with casual questions that were clearly targeted. "How have you been sleeping, Ed? Any changes in your memory? Is it hard to focus on tasks you used to handle easily?" I answered firmly, making it clear my mental and physical health were intact. But the doctor's persistence and Andrew's watchful interest made my skin crawl. It felt like they were waiting for me to confirm some decline that simply didn't exist. Then Christina stepped up to the center of the patio to begin the traditional toast. 50 guests gathered around her, champagne glasses in hand, as she took the microphone. "Friends," she began, clear and smiling, "thank you for being here on this special day. 43 years surrounded by wonderful people." Her eyes found mine across the crowd. For an instant, I saw the little girl she used to be, but it disappeared. "I want to thank my husband Andrew for organizing this perfect celebration." Applause filled the yard. Andrew hugged Christina possessively and whispered in her ear. She nodded. Then my daughter continued. "I also want to talk about the importance of family. But I mean family that truly supports you, that understands you, that doesn't become a burden when you most need to move forward with your life." A heavy silence fell over the guests. People traded uneasy looks. I felt the air thicken, electric with tension. Christina's voice hardened. "Sometimes older people don't understand that times have changed, that they can't make our decisions anymore, that it's time for them to step aside and let the next generation take the lead." The poison in her words was unmistakable. She was talking about me, right in front of people who had already been primed to see me as a senile man who didn't know when to quit. The humiliation was a public slap. I stayed calm. But what came next crossed any line of respect or decency. Christina looked straight at me. With an icy cold I had never seen in her, she raised her voice so everyone could hear. "Some people just don't know when it's their time to go," she said, wearing a cruel smile. "People who cling to a life that isn't theirs anymore, who don't understand their time ran out years ago." She paused, savoring the moment. "Sometimes I think it would be easier for everyone if certain people just disappeared." The yard fell silent. Faces showed shock. Some people stared at the ground. Then Christina delivered the final blow. She pointed at me and shouted, voice bursting with hate, "You should be dead." The words dropped like bombs in the silence. Some women gasped. Several men shifted uncomfortably. Andrew tried to calm Christina, but she pushed him away, her eyes locked on me with terrifying intensity. Something broke inside me, not just because of the phrase, But how she said it, the obvious premeditation, the calculated cruelty. This wasn't a momentary outburst. It was the result of months, maybe years, of built-up resentment and outside manipulation. But instead of collapsing or yelling, something unexpected happened. A deep calm washed over me. I smiled, not a bitter smile, but a gentle, freeing one. I slowly reached into my jacket and took out a folded document I always carried. Guests watched with growing curiosity as I unfolded the paper and held it up. It was my will, the document naming Christina as my sole heir, beneficiary of everything I owned, about $900,000. Without saying a word, I began to tear it, piece by piece, letting the fragments drift down onto the patio. The sound of paper ripping was the only thing in the heavy silence. Christina's face changed in an instant. The arrogance and hate vanished, replaced by pure panic. Her eyes went wide as she understood what she was seeing. Her color drained, tears of desperation appearing. As the last pieces fell like dry leaves, I kept that calm smile that seemed to unsettle everyone even more. The silence was so thick you could hear the wind whispering through the trees. Christina looked at me with a mix of terror and despair I had never seen in her. "Sweet daughter," I said softly, my voice steady, a sharp contrast to the emotional chaos I had just unleashed. "You just got exactly what you wanted. You'll never have to depend on me for money again." Murmurs rippled through the guests like waves in a pond. Some quietly took out their phones, sensing they were witnessing something extraordinary. Andrew stepped toward me, hands out in a soothing gesture. "Ed, please don't do this. Christina's going through a hard time." She didn't mean it. Emotions get the best of us. I stopped him with a look that carried months of suspicion, now turned into certainty. "Oh, I think she meant it, Andrew. And I have good reason to believe you had a lot to do with those words." The attorney's face changed instantly. His mask of family concern dropped into real alarm. "I don't know what you're talking about, Ed. Maybe you should calm down." "Calm down," I repeated, letting a touch of humor enter my voice. "On the contrary, I've never been calmer." I took out my phone and held it up so everyone could see it. You know what's interesting about modern phones? They can record conversations with excellent sound. My son Jason, the doctor, as you all know, helped me set up a very useful app. Christina's and Andrew's faces transformed, panic replacing any pretense of innocence. Andrew stepped back like my phone was a snake. "Since January," I continued, speaking to them and to the crowd around us, "I've been recording very revealing conversations, 15 recordings to be exact, conversations about very specific plans for my future." Christina finally found her voice, a strangled whisper. "Dad, no, it's not what you think." "Is it not?" I interrupted gently. "So it isn't true that since February you've been telling people I have memory problems, that I can't find my keys, that my judgment is slipping." Tears ran down her face, not sorrow, but raw panic. Andrew tried to move in again, but several guests instinctively stepped between us, forming a protective circle around me. "And you, Andrew," I turned to my son-in-law, "isn't it true you've been shopping for doctors willing to declare me mentally incompetent? Like Dr. Frank Rogers here, for example, who somehow appears at this party without me ever meeting him before." All eyes went to the geriatric doctor, who had gone pale and was clearly looking for an exit. His presence, which earlier seemed like a coincidence, now looked sinister. "How much did Andrew pay you, doctor?" I asked plainly. "Because I have bank statements showing a $5,000 transfer from his account to yours last July, exactly 1 week after our casual chat at the country club." Dr. Rogers began backing toward the side gate, mumbling excuses. Several guests watched him go with disgust. Martha James, the architect who'd shown that forced pity earlier, stepped closer, worried. "Ed, are you saying Christina and Andrew have been lying about your mental health?" "Not just lying, Martha. They've been running an elaborate plan to get me declared legally incompetent. The goal was simple: Control my $900,000 in property and savings. A surge of outrage ran through the crowd. People stared at Christina and Andrew with looks ranging from disappointment to open disgust. "Dad, please," Christina begged, reaching her hands out. "We can fix this. We can talk." "The time for talking ended when you screamed I should be dead," I said, firmer than I expected from myself. "And there's something else everyone should know. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, I have an appointment at the Ballantyne Police Precinct with Detective Carl Henderson." That name landed like a grenade in the already tense backyard. Andrew, who'd tried to hold on to some sense of control, lost it completely. His face twisted with desperation and rage, the real him finally showing. "This is ridiculous," he shouted to me and to the guests, who watched with growing horror. "This crazy old man is making things up because he can't accept he doesn't control our lives anymore." The reaction was immediate. Several men stood up and moved closer, forming a protective half-circle around me. Andrew's verbal aggression crossed a line nobody could tolerate. "Watch how you speak, son," said Anthony Watts, a retired businessman, 72, who'd been a client of mine for decades. His voice carried authority. Andrew involuntarily stepped back. Ed Miller's one of the most honorable men I know. If he says he has proof, he has proof. Christina tried a different strategy. She got close, tears running down her cheeks, shifting into the helpless little girl posture she used as a child to get what she wanted. "Dad, please, don't go to the police. We're family. We can work this out. Andrew's stressed at work. I've been confused. But I love you. I've always loved you." It might have convinced someone who hadn't heard the recordings on my phone, but I knew the truth. I'd heard her voice coldly discussing my future confinement in a nursing facility, calculating how long it would take to sell my home in Myers Park. "Do you love me, Christina?" I asked, my sadness cutting through my resolve. "Did you love your mother when you told Andrew?" And I quote, "Once he's committed, we'll have full access to his bank accounts"? The color left her face. Her tears came harder, but now they were tears of panic. Guests exchanged looks of disgust and shock. Some women stepped away from Christina like betrayal might be contagious. That's when Andrew made the mistake that sealed his fate. Desperation and fear of legal consequences pushed him into something irrational. "Enough!" he roared, charging at me with fists clenched. "I won't let you ruin our future with your selfish, senile ego." He lunged. Even though several men tried to intercept him, he reached me and punched me in the face hard enough to send me stumbling. It hurt, but more than pain, it confirmed who this man really was. Not just a con. Someone willing to use violence against a 65-year-old man to protect his criminal plans. The guests reacted fast. Anthony Watts and 3 other men tackled Andrew to the ground, shouting in outrage. Women jumped back, some immediately calling 911 or recording the scene. "Let me go! Get off me, idiots!" Andrew screamed, struggling helplessly. His suit was torn, his perfect hair ruined, his respectable mask gone. Christina ran to him, not to help me, but to free her husband. "Leave him alone! You don't know what you're doing!" That was the last blow to any remaining piece of fatherly love in my heart. At the moment she should have cared about my well-being after being punched, she chose to defend the man who hit me. Jason ran out from the kitchen, where he'd been talking with Patricia. He took one look at my bruised face and the chaos outside, and his eyes hardened in a way I rarely see in my gentle son. "What the hell happened?" he demanded, stepping close to examine my face with a doctor's focus. "Your brother-in-law just showed his true character," I said calmly, even surprising myself. "And your sister just chose her side." Multiple guests had already called the police. Sirens grew louder, approaching the subdivision. Realizing how serious things had gotten, Andrew tried even harder to break free, but the men holding him didn't budge. "Ed," said Martha James, coming over with a makeshift cold compress for my face, "we saw everything. We'll testify he attacked you without provocation." I looked around at the 50 faces gathered to celebrate my daughter's birthday. Many phones were recording, documenting the violence and the revelations. The evidence would be overwhelming. "Thank you," I murmured, taking the compress. "But I think I have enough witnesses for a lifetime." Blue and red lights splashed across the windows. I knew the nightmare was finally ending. What happened next? Officers from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department came into the backyard with calm, professional efficiency. Sergeant Logan went straight to Andrew, still pinned by the guests. "Gentlemen, you can let him go," he said firmly. "We'll take it from here." As officers cuffed Andrew, who swung between frantic legal threats and desperate pleas, I explained everything to Sergeant Logan. I showed him the recordings on my phone, mentioned the appointment scheduled with Detective Henderson, and pointed out the witnesses who'd seen the assault. "Mr. Miller," the sergeant told me after hearing my initial account, "we'll need you at the precinct early tomorrow to file the full report. For now, we're arresting Mr. Reeves for assault. We'll also need the documentation you mentioned for the other allegations." Christina, silent during the police response, finally spoke up. "This is insane. My husband isn't a criminal. My father's confused. He doesn't understand what he's doing." Officer Martin, a young but steady woman, approached Christina. "Ma'am, multiple witnesses confirm your husband assaulted your father without provocation. The fraud allegations are very serious and will be fully investigated." "But it's my money too," Christina shouted, her voice exposing her true thinking. "I'm his daughter. I have a right to that inheritance." A wave of disapproval ran through the guests. Even those who didn't know every detail could feel the greed behind her words. Jason stepped toward Christina, hurt in his face. "A right? A right to what, Christina? To get our father declared incompetent? To steal what he earned over 40 years? "You don't get it," Christina fired back. "You have your career, your practice, your future sorted. I need that money. Andrew has debts. We have expenses. We have plans." The brutal honesty stunned everyone. No more pretending it was love or concern for my health. It was only money, just as I'd suspected for months. While officers processed Andrew's arrest, I told the guests how I had discovered the plot against me. "It started in January 2023, I explained, while Officer Martin took notes. I noticed small changes in Christina's behavior. I first thought it was normal marriage stress. But then she began pushing me to sign simple documents to update my affairs. My instincts told me something was wrong. "The turning point came in March," I said. "I found medical papers on my desk that I had never authorized. Preliminary psychiatric evaluations suggesting early signs of cognitive decline. The problem? I had never seen any of those doctors. That's when I brought in Jason," I continued, looking at my son with gratitude. As a physician, he explained exactly what they were trying to do and how I could protect myself. Jason nodded. I installed a recording app on his phone and showed him how to use it discreetly. I also took him to trusted specialists for full evaluations to document his excellent mental health. Over the next months, I gathered evidence steadily. The most damning recordings came when I pretended mild confusion now and then. Christina and Andrew would openly discuss their plans in front of me, thinking I wouldn't understand or remember. "The clearest recording came in July," I said, holding up my phone again. "Christina tells Andrew, once we get the incompetency ruling, we can sell the house in Myers Park immediately. With that $460,000 plus his savings, we'll have enough to pay your debts and start over." Faces showed horror. Women covered their mouths. Others shook their heads. Anthony Watts swore under his breath, saying what many were thinking. Officer Martin finished taking preliminary statements from key witnesses. Martha James, Anthony, and 6 others gave detailed accounts of everything they had seen. "Mr. Miller," Officer Martin told me before leaving, "Mr. Reeves will stay in custody until the initial hearing. As for your daughter, we'll need your recordings and documents tomorrow to determine whether additional criminal charges apply." Christina slumped into a chair, sobbing uncontrollably, but not with real remorse. These were the self-pitying tears of someone who had lost a very risky bet. "Dad," she murmured, "please, don't do this. We can find another way. Andrew can get help. He can pay his debts another way." I looked at her one last time with something like love. "Christina, you had 42 years to be an honorable daughter. Tonight you chose to be a con artist. That choice has consequences." As the patrol cars pulled away with Andrew, the guests slowly began to leave. Many shook my hand, offered support, or told me they would help if I needed anything. The kindness of people who, just hours earlier, had treated me like a declining old man touched me deeply. The party was over, but my real freedom was just beginning. The next morning brought a mental clarity I hadn't felt in months. I got up early at 6:30 and carefully organized everything I would give Detective Henderson. On my desk, I laid out 15 transcribed recordings, the fraudulent medical reports, bank statements showing suspicious transfers, and legitimate psychiatric evaluations proving I was fully capable. Jason arrived at 8 to go with me to the precinct. My face still showed the swelling from Andrew's punch, a physical reminder of how far they were willing to go to silence me. "How do you feel, Dad?" Jason asked while we reviewed the documents together. "Free," I said without hesitation. For the first time in over a year, completely free. The Ballantine precinct was busy when we arrived. Detective Carl Henderson received us in his office, a man in his 50s, serious but understanding. He'd reviewed the preliminary report from the night before and already grasped the basics. "Mr. Miller," he began as he organized his notes, "what you're describing is a complex case of adult guardianship fraud. Sadly, we see it more and more. I need you to explain exactly how you discovered the plan." For the next 2 hours, I walked through the conspiracy step by step. I started with the subtle changes in Christina after her marriage, the drip of disrespectful comments about my mental ability, the growing pressure to sign legal papers. The decisive moment was March 15th, I said, showing calendar entries. I found 3 medical evaluations on my desk that I had supposedly authorized. The doctors listed were Dr. Frank Rogers, Dr. Michael Sanders, and Dr. Carmen Lawson. The problem was, I remembered clearly I'd never seen any of them. Detective Henderson wrote down the names while Jason added medical context. "My father has an excellent memory for appointments," Jason said. "He's always been meticulous about his health, especially after my mother died." I explained how I quietly looked into the doctors. Dr. Rogers had a history of minor ethical issues. Dr. Lawson had been disciplined twice for issuing diagnoses without proper exams. Dr. Sanders looked cleaner, but there were unusual payments from Andrew's bank account. "That's when Jason helped me install the recording app," I continued. The strategy was simple. Now and then I'd act a little forgetful to encourage Christina and Andrew to talk openly. I played some of the most incriminating recordings. In one from May 3rd, Christina can be heard telling Andrew, "Dr. Rogers says with 3 concurring evaluations, we can start the legal process. Once he's declared incompetent, we'll have full power of attorney." In another from June 22nd, and Andrew openly discussed the money. "With the sale of the Myers Park house, we'll get about $460,000 right away, plus $200,000 from his savings and $200,000 from investments. That will cover my debts and leave a cushion." Detective Henderson listened, his expression growing more serious. "Mr. Miller, this is clear evidence of a conspiracy to commit fraud. We also have falsified medical documents, and now an assault. The case against both of them is strong." But there was more. In my quiet digging, I learned Andrew's debts were even worse than I'd guessed. He didn't just owe $200,000 from bad crypto plays. He had also used my name to apply for bank loans without my knowledge. "How did he use your name without authorization?" Henderson asked. "He had copies of my ID," I said. Christina gave them to him under the pretense of helping with legal paperwork. He also forged my signature at least 3 times. Jason added more medical research. I looked into the doctors. Dr. Rogers issued 7 mental incompetency diagnoses in the last 2 years, each time benefiting family members who then took financial control of the patient. Henderson took special note. That suggests a wider pattern. We'll need to investigate all of those cases. I also described the psychological pressure I had endured. Christina started treating me condescendingly in public, telling friends that my judgment was slipping. She corrected my memories in front of others, building a false story of confusion. Psychological manipulation is insidious, I said. For a while I started doubting my own perception. When your own daughter keeps telling you you're confused, you start to question yourself. Detective Henderson finished the formal statement and explained the next steps. Andrew would remain in custody while the district attorney processed the assault and fraud charges. Christina would be called in for questioning in the next few days, and more charges could be added based on her role. Mr. Miller, he said as I signed the last page, cases like this take real courage to report. Many victims never find the strength to confront family who betray them. Detective, I replied, I learned that keeping your dignity matters more than keeping a fake peace. When I left the precinct, I felt like a massive weight had lifted off my shoulders. The legal process was just beginning, but the truth was finally in the hands of the right people. Justice would take its course, and I could begin rebuilding my life away from the toxicity that had poisoned the last years. The days after I filed the report were emotionally intense, like back when Susan died. News of Andrew's arrest and the investigation spread quickly through our Charlotte circle. The phone didn't stop ringing. Former business partners, neighbors, friends of decades, shocked, offering support. On Wednesday morning, 3 days after the disastrous party, my attorney of 15 years, Michael Castle, called. He sounded tense. Ed, we need to meet. There are new complications we didn't anticipate. An hour later, in his office on Tryon Street, Michael shared information that made the betrayal even bigger. Andrew hadn't only planned to get me declared incompetent, he had also been actively destabilizing my finances. We found unauthorized transfers totaling $35,000, Michael said, going through bank statements. He used copies of your documents to make moves that seemed technically legit, but were meant to create erratic patterns. The strategy was diabolical. By creating a history of confusing and irrational transactions, Andrew was building extra evidence of your supposed mental decline. Duplicate purchases, transfers to unknown accounts, high-risk investments, everything crafted to support the story of an older man losing his faculties. And there's more, Michael continued, face serious. He tried to list at least 6 properties as collateral for loans using your name. Thankfully, banks required you to appear in person, which blocked him. I was speechless. This wasn't a casual, opportunistic scam. It was a sophisticated criminal operation over more than a year. That afternoon, Detective Henderson called with an update on Christina's interview. She showed up with her own lawyer, a sign she knew how serious this was. She first denied knowing anything about Andrew's fraud, he said. But when we played recordings where she participates, her defense fell apart. According to the detective, Christina tried to minimize her role, saying Andrew manipulated her and she just followed instructions without fully understanding the legal consequences. It was a weak defense that didn't survive the evidence. The recordings show she understood perfectly, Henderson said. In several, she even suggests strategies to speed up the incompetency process. Thursday morning brought an unexpected visit. Christina came to my house in Myers Park with Patricia, Jason's wife, who had agreed to mediate a last-chance family talk. Ed, Patricia said gently, uncomfortable. Christina wants to talk. She's very sorry and thinks you two can solve this calmly. I let them in, more from curiosity than any real hope of reconciliation. Christina looked exhausted, Dark circles, pale, worn out. But what struck me most was the total lack of the arrogance she'd shown at the party. "Dad," she started, voice trembling, "I know I made terrible mistakes. I know I hurt you in ways that can't be forgiven. But please understand, Andrew manipulated me. He convinced me you were truly sick, that you needed help you couldn't admit." I listened without interrupting. It was convincing, but I know my daughter too well to believe it was real remorse. "Andrew told me doctors confirmed early signs of dementia," she said, crying. "He told me it was my duty as your daughter to protect you, even if that meant making hard decisions you wouldn't understand." "And the $35,000? I asked. "Did he manipulate you to authorize those transfers too?" Her face changed instantly. The mask of vulnerability cracked, and the calculating cold I'd seen at the party flashed through. "I don't know what you're talking about. I never authorized anything." "Patricia, Christina," I cut in, calm. "Your signature appears on 6 bank documents authorizing those moves. The police have handwriting experts examining them." She dropped onto the couch, covering her face with her hands. Patricia looked at me with pleading resignation. She was beginning to grasp the full scope. "Please, Dad," Christina sobbed, "don't destroy our family over this. We can pay it back. We can fix everything. Andrew can get help. I can change. Just don't send me to jail." "Our family?" I repeated, deep sadness in my voice. "Christina, our family ended the moment you decided to see me as an obstacle to your prosperity instead of your father." Patricia tried one more time. "Ed, think about the grandchildren you might have. Think about future holidays. Do you really want it to end this way?" "Patricia," I said gently but firmly, "if I have grandkids, it'll be through you and Jason. As for holidays, I'd rather be with people who respect me than with people who see me as a walking bank account." Christina stood abruptly, and I saw a flash of the rage from the party. "You're selfish. You only care about your wounded pride. You don't care about ruining your daughter's life." "My wounded pride," I said slowly, "is worth more than your bottomless greed." They left, and I knew deep down it might be the last time I would see Christina as anything like a daughter. Family ties, once broken by betrayal and greed, rarely heal. The criminal case moved forward over the next 8 months with a thoroughness that first exhausted me, then made me grateful, because thoroughness brings real justice. During that period, I made a decision that even surprised Jason. I put my Myers Park house up for sale and started planning a move to San Diego, California. "Are you sure, Dad?" he asked at a weekly dinner in February 2024. "You've lived there 20 years. So many memories with Mom." "That's exactly why I need to go," I said. "The beautiful memories are here," I touched my chest, "not in the walls, but the painful memories of Christina's betrayal are in every room." The sale closed in March for $460,000, slightly above appraisal. With that and what I recovered from the stolen funds, I had enough to buy a smaller place in San Diego and live comfortably. I chose San Diego for practical and emotional reasons. Susan and I spent our honeymoon there in 1981 and always talked about retiring by the Pacific. The climate would be good for my health, and the distance would let me start fresh. During the move, Christina tried desperate outreach, handwritten letters every week, phone calls I didn't answer, even unannounced appearances at my door. All the same pattern, pleas for forgiveness mixed with emotional manipulation. In one long letter dated April 15th, she wrote, "Dear Dad, I know I've done unforgivable things, but I also know deep down you still love me. Andrew isn't in my life anymore. I've started divorce papers. Please give me a chance to prove I can be your daughter again." I read it all, but didn't respond. Her words felt calculated, lacking the authenticity I'd need even to consider reconciliation. Besides, my sources told me the divorce was a legal tactic to shield marital assets from the criminal case, not a genuine emotional break. The trial reached its peak in May 2024. The prosecutor built a solid case from my recordings, witnesses from the party, forensic proof of forged signatures, and statements from the corrupt doctors. Andrew faced charges for aggravated fraud, document forgery, assault, and criminal conspiracy. He tried everything. First, he said I had misread innocent conversations. When that collapsed, he blamed Christina, claiming she was the mastermind. His lawyer, Richard Turner, made one last desperate attempt in closing. Your Honor, my client admits to grave errors in judgment, but he acted under the influence of a woman who knew her father's vulnerabilities. The strategy was disgusting but predictable. Throw Christina under the bus to reduce his sentence. I looked at my daughter on the defense bench and saw how her betrayal now turned against her. Christina's case was legally more complicated. Her attorney, Elaine Watkins, built a defense around emotional manipulation and Andrew's undue influence. My client was a victim of a calculating man who exploited her financial and emotional vulnerability after years of an unhealthy marriage. On the stand, Christina tried to present herself as a secondary victim. I never wanted to hurt my father. Andrew convinced me Dad needed professional help. He told me it was my duty to make sure he got care. When the prosecutor played recordings of her discussing the money, she fell apart. I was confused. Andrew said it was the only way to protect the family. Protect the family by declaring your healthy father incompetent? The prosecutor asked, incredulous. I thought he was really sick, she murmured. Judge Francis Morgan, about 60, known for being strict but fair, listened carefully, asking pointed questions that showed he understood the calculated nature of the crime. When it was my turn, I addressed the court with a statement I'd prepared. Your Honor, for 42 years, I raised a daughter with love, values, and opportunity. I gave her education, emotional support, and financial security. In return, she conspired to steal my autonomy, my dignity, and my life savings. I'm not seeking revenge. I'm seeking justice and protection for other parents who may face similar betrayal. Sentencing came on June 2, 2024. Andrew got 3 years in state prison, plus full restitution with interest and damages. Christina received a 2-year suspended sentence and 200 hours of community service. I watched their reactions as the judge read the terms. Andrew stayed stoic, probably relieved it wasn't more. Christina cried without control, but her tears no longer moved me. As I left the courthouse with Jason, Patricia, and a few loyal friends, I felt a sense of final closure. Justice had prevailed, and more importantly, I had fully reclaimed my dignity. San Diego was waiting, and with it, a new life built on genuine relationships and mutual respect. Arriving in San Diego in July 2024 marked the real beginning of my rebirth. I bought a 2-bedroom condo in North Park, a lively area with a neighborhood feel, close to the historic heart of the city. For the first time in years, I woke up without feeling like I was walking on broken glass. The adjustment was easier than I expected. My new neighbors, especially Amber Reed, a 71-year-old widow next door, welcomed me with warmth I had almost forgotten existed. Ed, if you need anything, knock on my door, she told me on day one with a motherly smile that reminded me of my own mom. In those first weeks, I built simple routines, shopping at the Little Italy Mercado, walks through Balboa Park, exploring the Gaslamp Quarter. But Amber suggested something that changed everything. Have you thought about joining a gym? She asked in the elevator. There's one nearby for older adults, Active Life Senior. People say it's wonderful. The idea grabbed me instantly. During the court months, I hadn't cared for my body. My medical tests were still great, but I knew I needed to rebuild not only emotionally, but physically. The gym was in a converted warehouse with modern equipment adapted for people over 60. The vibe was the opposite of a typical gym. Soft music, warm lighting, and an immediate sense of community. The director, Carla Morgan, a 45-year-old physical therapist with contagious energy, welcomed me personally. "Mr. Miller, welcome to the family. We're about whole-person wellness here. We want you comfortable and motivated." During the assessment, she was impressed. "For 66, you're in very good shape. With the right program, you can reach levels of strength and stamina you might not imagine." My first training day opened my eyes. The morning group had about 15 people, men and women, 60 to 75, each with a compelling story and inspiring attitude. Alan Vance, a 72-year-old former math teacher who started training after a mild heart attack 3 years ago, leaned over while we worked on cardio. "Ed, this place saved my life, not just physically, but mentally. Here I found purpose and real friendship." Rose Daniels, a 69-year-old former nurse, quickly became my favorite training partner. Her story echoed mine. She'd cut off her son after learning he'd been stealing from her bank account for years. "People think we're too old to start over," Rose told me during water aerobics, "but I've never felt stronger or more independent." The social side of the gym was as transformative as the workouts. After each session, we met in the cafe for breakfast and conversation. That's where real friendships grew. Megan Lewis, a 71-year-old former librarian with a wicked sense of humor, organized weekend activities, day trips, museum visits, and big group dinners. "Ed," she'd tell me, "retirement doesn't mean stepping away from life. It means finally living the life you choose." After 3 months of steady training, the changes were dramatic. I'd lost 18 pounds, gained real muscle, and felt energy I hadn't had in decades. But more important, I built a circle of friends based on respect, shared interests, and genuine emotional support. During that time, Jason called often, happy and a bit surprised by my transformation. "Dad, you sound different," he said. "There's a vitality in your voice I haven't heard in years." "I feel like I'm living my real life for the first time in decades," I told him one Sunday. "I'm surrounded by people who value me for who I am, not for what I own." In October, Carla asked me to join a regional senior fitness competition in November. The idea scared me at first, but the group's enthusiastic support convinced me. "Ed, your progress is extraordinary," Carla said during a one-on-one. "You might surprise yourself." Preparation became a community project. Alan helped with nutrition planning. Rose joined me for extra cardio. Megan built a cheering squad that showed up to my toughest training days. During those intense weeks, I often thought about the contrast between my old and new life. In Charlotte, I was surrounded by people who saw me as a resource to exploit. In San Diego, I was surrounded by people who celebrated me as a person and a friend. The night before the competition, our group had dinner downtown. Megan raised her glass for an impromptu toast. To Ed, who reminded us that true strength doesn't come from blood, but from the relationships we build with love and respect. I slept deeply that night, with a peace I hadn't felt since before Susan died. I'd found not only a new city, but a new way to exist, built on authenticity and constant growth. The competition would be the public celebration of an inner transformation that was already complete. The regional senior fitness event was held at Pechanga Arena on a bright November Saturday. That morning I looked in the mirror and barely recognized the man staring back. Where a tired, betrayed businessman once stood, there was someone vital, strong, and confident. My gym friends waited at the entrance with homemade signs. "Go Ed," and Active Life Senior. Carla was more nervous than I was, checking my registration papers and reviewing our exercises one last time. "Remember," she whispered, "no matter the result, you've already won just by being here." But I knew the outcome mattered, not out of vanity, but because it marked the symbolic end of my rebirth. Every rep, every set, every drop of sweat these past months was a declaration of independence from those who tried to reduce me to a helpless old man. The men's 65-70 group had 23 competitors from across the county. I watched them warm up, men who had clearly devoted years to fitness, some with bodies that shattered stereotypes about aging. Events included an adapted bench press, bodyweight squats, modified push-ups, and a cardio endurance circuit. Each test measured real-life function for older adults, not just raw strength. In the bench press, I did 45 kilos for 12 reps, better than I expected. The crowd cheered. I heard Rose, Alan, and Megan yelling my name from the stands. Squats were my strength. Months of work with Carla gave me smooth form that even impressed the judges. I finished 75 reps without stopping, landing in second place for the moment. During a break, I got a call I almost ignored. It was Jason, calling from Charlotte with news he couldn't wait to share. "Dad, I didn't want to interrupt, but you should know right now. Patricia's pregnant. You're going to be a grandpa in June." The news hit me like pure joy radiating through my whole body. During the hard months with Christina, I'd wondered if I'd ever know the joy of grandchildren. Now, as I prepared for the next event, I also prepared to be the grandfather I'd always hoped to be. My modified push-ups were technically perfect. The new muscle let me do 50 with clean form, better than some younger men. The final cardio circuit had 6 stations: bike, treadmill, rower, step-ups, elliptical, and a cone agility test. This is where mental grit matters as much as physical. Moving station to station, my mind wandered to the unlikely journey of the last 18 months. In September 2023, my own daughter had been trying to push me toward forced dependency and loss of autonomy. Now, in November 2024, I was competing side by side with men a decade younger. I finished the circuit in 8:43, good enough to land in the top 5. Exhaustion mixed with a kind of euphoria I hadn't felt since my best business days. But this time the satisfaction was 100% personal. At the awards ceremony, I placed 4th overall, far beyond any realistic expectation I had when I started. But as I accepted my medal, I knew the real prize was the transformation itself. My gym family greeted me like I'd won gold. Carla cried proud tears. Rose hugged me like a son. Alan announced we'd celebrate with the best dinner San Diego could offer. At Harbor House near the bay, I thought about the road I'd traveled. Megan, our informal master of ceremonies, asked for quiet to speak. "Ed taught us something fundamental," she said, raising a glass of sparkling wine, "that life really begins when we choose to live it honestly, surrounded by people who value us and push us to be better." That night, back at my North Park condo, I sat on the balcony watching the city lights that now felt truly like home. My phone rang again. Jason wanted competition details and had more baby news. "Dad, you sound unbelievably happy," he said. "It's like you finally found what you'd been searching for without knowing it." "I found respect," I answered, thinking carefully. "Self-respect, mutual respect, and the understanding that I deserve to be around people who celebrate my wins instead of plotting against my well-being." 2 weeks later, the last thing I expected from my old life arrived. A certified letter from Christina, mailed from Charlotte, held a final apology and a desperate plea for reconciliation before her future nephew was born. I read it all, folded it carefully, and placed it in the drawer with the other documents from that painful chapter. I didn't respond, not out of cruelty, but because I finally learned that some doors, once closed by betrayal, must stay closed to protect your own integrity. My new life in San Diego, surrounded by real friendships and physical challenges that renewed me daily, was everything I'd been unconsciously seeking for years. A community built on mutual respect, personal growth, and true celebration of life at every age. At 66, I discovered that real wealth isn't $900,000 or a list of properties. It's the ability to build meaningful relationships and keep your dignity no matter what. Christina lost a father, But I gained a chosen family that values my presence, celebrates my achievements, and constantly challenges me to grow. The most perfect revenge against betrayal turned out to be living extraordinarily well. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.